Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today is day 7 of Bloomburrow spoilers, and we got combos, we got synergies, we've got a lizard that's going to do a lot of damage to people potentially. Let's see. Starting off with Caretaker's Talent, a 3 mana enchantment class, and it says whenever one or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Boo. Um, 1 mana, level 2. When this class becomes level 2, create a token that's a copy of target token you control, and then 4 mana for level 3, creature tokens you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. +3/+3 would be pretty good, but this is not quite that good. This thing synergizes with a lot of good stuff already in standard. Anything that makes a token will draw you a card. So pretty powerful ability. I can see why they made it cost 3 here. So if you played Novice Inspector, that would draw a card. Anything that makes a food token that can draw you a card. If you have Skrelv's Hive, for example, that would just generally draw you a card every turn because a token would be coming to play. If you can generate a token on your opponent's turn, that could potentially draw you 2 cards per turn cycle. And then, level 2 is whenever it becomes level 2, you create a token that's a copy of target token you control. I was thinking of there are some Blade Splicer tokens that would be kind of cool to copy with this on turn 4, something like that. That would kind of be a good target. So that could be a potential home for this. But if you really wanted to go big, you can go Doppelgang and create a token copy of the Caretaker's Talent, right? And then that would trigger its first ability. You would draw a card, and then you could pay 1 on the token copy to create a copy token of itself, and then that would come into play, and that would draw 1. And then so if you had extra white mana, you could basically pay 1 white mana to draw a card and create another copy of it. And then in the following turn, you could do it again, or if you had it again, um, create another token copy of it, then the original ones would also trigger because a token would be coming into place. So you could draw a ton of cards that way with Doppelgang if you created a token copy of it. So that's something, I suppose. And then, yeah, last up, the creature tokens get +2/+2 against Skrelv's Hive would be pretty good. 3 Blind Mice. There's a bunch of token creators in this set, so maybe you're just using this as an anthem to go wide as well. Um, this card's a little awkward because each of these abilities kind of wants different things to some extent. The first one wants you to display any kinds of tokens. The second one really wants you to target something like a big token, and then the last one kind of wants you to have a bunch of different tokens or creature tokens specifically. So I'm not sure if this will find a home. It's definitely all powerful abilities, but yeah, those are my thoughts about Caretaker's Talent. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Okay, next up we've got the Beast Binder, which is a 2 mana 1/3 rat rogue, which has vigilance. And Beast Binder can't be blocked by creatures of power 2 or greater. When it attacks, up to 1 target artifact, creature, or planeswalker an opponent controls loses all abilities until your next turn. If it's a creature, it has base power and toughness 2/2 until your next turn. So a pretty decent ability on this guy. It kind of shuts down your opponent's best creature. It could also turn off artifacts like the One Ring, for example. Like your opponent couldn't use it to tap to draw cards. So that could be good. It would turn it into a 2/2. They wouldn't lose life off of it either if with the One Ring, I believe. But you could use it to just kind of neutralize your opponent's Sheldred, something like that, which would be pretty good, losing all of its abilities until your next turn. And then because it has 2 power, it can't be blocked by its second ability here. So it is a rat. I thought it would kind of be nice with Harmonix, the Rat King, because it would give it Toxic, and because it has pretty good evasion, it would probably get in for a poison every turn, and that's pretty decent. You could suit it up with like equipment and things like that. That would be decent as well because it's got pretty good evasion. Um, but also, turning things into a 2/2 is there's this new sort of pyroclasm effect, Wildfire Howl, which has 2 damage to each creature. So, for example, you could play this on turn 2, attack on turn 3, turn their guy. Maybe they have a 2/2 and a 3/3 out, turn the 3/3 into or like a 4/4, turn the 4/4 into a 2/2, and then Pyroclasm and kill both of them. And because this guy has 3 toughness himself, you would survive. So, or if like a shock effect, anything cut down, things like that would kind of work nicely. Things that with this last ability to turn guys into 2/2s. And then he also targets things on your opponent's side. So if they have an artifact creature or planeswalker, you basically get to commit a crime without paying any mana every turn if you keep attacking with this guy. So that's useful. Like with free starter lookout, get a free land every turn. There's a bunch of other crime stuff. So maybe there's different uses. He's got a powerful ability, I would say. We'll kind of have to see how this one shakes out if he finds a home or not. But pretty interesting card for sure. Okay, next up we've got Cruelclaw's Heist, which is a 2-mana black sorcery. You can gift a card, so you can have your opponent draw a card when you cast this if you want to. It says target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an online card from it, exile that card. If the gift was promised, you may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So basically, you can have the exile card, which is different than discard, which can be relevant against certain like reanimator strategies or strategies that use the graveyard for your opponent. Exiling things is usually better than just having them discard. So that's kind of an upgrade from Thoughtseize, for example. But you can also have them draw a card and then you can play that card. So if they don't have any cards in hand, usually Thoughtseize is sort of a dead card, but this would give you a chance because if they drew, I mean, it doesn't always work because if they draw a land, then you've kind of just given them a free land. So, but if they draw a non-land, you could steal it basically if they have no cards in hand. So that's some upside. The other thing is like all of these gift a card cards are interesting with cards that punish your opponent for drawing cards, such as Fairy Mastermind, Shieldred, Orcish Bowmasters in older formats. So maybe there's some sort of synergy deck there where you're just playing these cards that punish your opponent for drawing cards, and then gifting them cards, and that's actually an advantage for you. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about this one. I think it could see some play. It's definitely got a powerful effect. 2 mana is never the greatest for a discard effect. You usually want to do it on turn 1 just to snag whatever the best thing your opponent has in their opening hand. But yeah, we'll see how it turns out. All right, next up we've got the Essence Chandler, which is a 2-mana 2/1, a Bat Cleric. As long as you've lost life this turn, it has Flying and Vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And when it dies, you can put all its counters onto target creature you control. A lot of powerful abilities here for just 2 mana, and works pretty well with the other bat, whatever the bat stuff is doing in this set, which is gaining life and making you lose life. So, for example, with Zorleen. So if you played this on 2 and the Zorleen on 3, then you attacked, you would gain a life, and then would get a +1/+1 counter on it. If you had a sorry, if you had Quasar, you could trigger its first ability every turn to lose life just by paying the mana. There's this new card, the Sonar Strike I'm putting here because I actually think this is like Lightning Helix plus potentially, doing 4 damage and gaining 3. And that would trigger a lot of bat stuff for gaining life. So I actually think Sonar Strike has a chance of seeing some constructed play in a bat deck, of course, because it synergizes with all your bat effects, and it's just kind of better than Lightning Helix in some situations. So, and you don't have to play red for it. Yeah, and then it is a cleric too. There's a lot of these bats are clerics I've noticed, and there is a cleric lord in standard still, the Shadowrite Priest. So you can sacrifice another cleric to get a big creature. We'll have to figure out what the best target for that is, but it does buff all your clerics +1/+1. So maybe there's some bat cleric hybrid deck that we could build in standard and see how that goes. Yeah. Let's see. Next up, we've got the Stormchaser's Talent, which is a 1 blue mana enchantment class. It says when it enters, create a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. Level 2 is when this class becomes level 2. Return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. And then level 3, 6 more mana whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. Create a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. So this card is interesting. I can see it seeing play in just maybe some blue-red prowess deck, because the first ability gives you a 1/1 otter token with prowess, and then if you played any other subsequent copies of this, it would trigger prowess for all your prowess creatures. So it's pretty cool that it creates a prowess threat and um, triggers prowess itself. So that's always a good thing. So maybe you just kind of use it for just as a 1 mana trigger prowess, 1/1 prowess essentially, and then the rest is gravy. Level 2 and 3 are very expensive, I would say. So takes a while too, but you would, if the game goes long, it could be useful to activate these as well. Um, if you're playing like some burn deck with a prowess creatures, being able to get back one of your burn spells late game could be the difference between winning and losing. So there are some other combos though with this that could be kind of cool. I was thinking about scroll shift, for example, as ways to blink this, because you can blink an enchantment and then it would come back into play. You get another otter. Playing the scroll shift itself would trigger prowess on your otter or any other prowess that you had. You draw another card, and then you could use level 2 to return the scroll shift back to your hand, and then cast the scroll shift, and then it would reset it, and then you could kind of do that over and over again. It's a very expensive loop. It's like 7 mana, but you could continually loop scroll shift and returning scroll shift back to your hand for 7 mana. Each iteration, you would be drawing an extra card and getting an extra uh, otter and triggering prowess each time you do it. So maybe that's kind of interesting synergy to explore. And maybe also it's just like uh, a 1/1 guy and you're using the enchantment to bargain something. Beseech is kind of cool with uh, different with prowess and specific, because if you have extra stuff that you can um, sacrifice, other enchantments or artifacts or tokens, you can trigger prowess multiple times with one beseech. You could play beseech and then sacrifice this, get another beseech, and then sacrifice another thing, and then that would trigger prowess a couple times. So maybe there's some synergy there. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. This is a good one. I think we'll see some play. Not exactly sure the home right now. And then the last level 3, you know, is just kind of gravy. Again, it kind of works with looping beseeches pretty well, getting more otter creatures. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, and then we've got the Valley Flamecaller, which is a 3 mana lizard warlock 3/3, and it says if a lizard mouse, I thought it said moose there. No, if a lizard, mouse, otter, or raccoon you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 instead. So this is a pretty powerful effect, actually. You usually kind of see this at like 4 mana typically to get this effect. Um, but at a 3 mana, it's pretty above the curve, I would say. Note that this does boost itself, its own damage, so it's kind of like a 4/3 for 3, which is pretty decent. Um, and then it works just so well with all the lizard stuff that lizards are doing, which is pinging everything. So the Vine Lasher, the Hired Claw, Gev, all of them ping. So, for example, with Hired Claw, this would both double up the ping. So you attack with Hired Claw, and it would ping for 2, and then its own power would be +1, essentially deal an extra damage. So it would attack for 4, essentially. The Vine Lasher, very sweet, especially because you can create multiple copies of Vine Lasher, right? And then each land would do 4 damage, basically. And if you had a fetch land, that'd be like 8 damage. Like that can add up pretty quickly. And then Geb, of course, just pings whenever you play a lizard, which this is a lizard. So, um, yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty strong. It seems like a really good top of the curve for a lizard deck. All the different tribes are looking really good. They've created pretty good curves, a lot of good 1-drops, a lot of aggressive stuff going on in this set. So there may just be a whole slew of different aggro decks that are available after this set. We'll kind of have to see what shakes out, of course. And then we've got the Croatian Mage, which is an otter, so it also boosts this guy. So it'll deal 2 damage each time. If you offspring that, then any spell is going to essentially deal 4 damage. So that can kind of get out of hand pretty quickly too. Yeah, so I I guess we haven't seen the entire full set, so there's still some cards. We'll see exactly what all the lizards, mouse, otters, raccoons end up being, but so far this seems to probably synergize the best with all the different lizards, and is a lizard itself, so makes sense. Um, yeah, it's a pretty exciting one. I have a feeling this one is going to see some decent amount of play as well. Okay, now some uncommons. We've got the Flamecache gecko. So speaking of lizards, I think this one would go in the curve of a lizard deck. Um, so the Flamecache gecko is 2 mana for a 2/2 lizard warlock. When it enters, if an opponent lost life this turn, add black or red. So right away that you can see that's pretty easy to do on turn 2 with the Vine Lasher or the Hired Claw, which can both on turn 2 deal 1 damage to the opponent. The Vine Lasher, even without attacking, can do that. So that's pretty useful. Um, so pretty easy to get that ability turned on in a lizard deck. And then 2 mana to discard a card, draw a card. So kind of a nice looter effect. So that's pretty decent to be able to kind of loot, maybe in a reanimator deck of some kind. So it definitely reminds me of Burning Tree Emissary, just because of the first ability. And you could just play like maybe a really aggressive deck in historic or older formats in Explorer, Pioneer that have kind of 8 Burning Tree emissaries. So if you want turn 1 drop, turn do a damage to your opponent, turn 2, play as many Burning Tree emissaries and Flamecache geckos as you have in your hand, you can kind of go wide pretty quickly with that potentially. It's got an infinite combo with Cathodian Nightmare if you have 2 of them, because you can loop them with Cathodian Nightmare and then recast the Cathodian Nightmare with the black and red. So if you had 1 in the graveyard, 1 in play, and Cathodian Nightmare out, you could sacrifice 1 to return the other. It would return uh, Cathodian Nightmare to your hand, and then you get 2 mana, play Cathodian Nightmare again, sacrifice, return the other one, and just loop and loop and loop, and then you would get basically infinite come into play triggers, infinite leave the battlefield triggers. So any sort of blood artist effect or something like that would kind of go infinite there. So yeah, I think this guy's got some potential for sure. I mean, if you do damage, it's kind of like Burning Emissary plus, and because it gives you 2 mana right away, if you don't have anything to do with it, you could use it just to discard a card, draw a card. So which is not a bad thing to do, just to loot away, especially in an aggressive red deck. You really want that effect to be able to um, discard extra lands. That's really powerful. So definitely think this guy's got some potential for constructed. And then last up, we've got Stalking the Pantry. Look at this little squirrel who's stocking up his pantry. So 1 mana enchantment. Love the art in this set. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put a supply counter on Stock in the Pantry, and then 2 mana, remove a supply counter from it to draw a card. So kind of unassuming. It's kind of 1 mana enchantment, doesn't really do anything on its own, but I feel like the counters on this could add up really really quick, and could be pretty decent potentially in a sort of a green aggressive deck. There's a lot of cards in this set that put +1/+1 counters on them. The Valley Mightcaller, for example, the Mistbreath Elder, the Sunshower Druid, all would trigger this. And it doesn't say once per turn, so you can kind of get a ton of different supply counters on this thing. For example, if you played Valley Mightcaller on turn 1, then you played Stalking the Pantry and Sunshower Druid on turn 2, that would put 2 counters on it right there, and then you could draw cards going forward from that, if you had extra mana. So definitely, I think this card can scale pretty well. The Thirsting Roots is kind of interesting, or anything with Proliferate is kind of sweet with this whole strategy, because again, and then tell me if I'm wrong, but I think, like, let's say you had 2 creatures out in the stocking pantry with each with +1/+1 counters on it. If you proliferate, then each of those would get an additional +1/+1 counter, and so that would trigger the stocking pantry twice. But then the proliferate would also increase the supply counters on stocking pantry, so that would like be +3 counters to stocking pantry, and then +1 to all your creatures with +1/+1 counters. Pretty powerful. This guy, and this can get just a ton of acorns basically stored on it. um, so I don't know. I think this has some potential to see play. 2 mana just to draw a card is a powerful effect, and you can kind of, it feels like in a +1/+1 counter deck, it's almost like unlimited card draw. So because the cards you're going to draw are going to be able to put +1/+1 counters on things most likely. So it just kind of keeps going and keeps going. Um, so yeah, very very cool card. We'll see if it ends up in a home. Maybe it's more just a sideboard card against more of the grindy matchups that you can have more time to pay the mana to draw cards, but definitely a powerful and cheap effect as well. Okay, so that is it for today for our Bloomburrow spoilers. Tomorrow, I think we get the full set. I'm not sure, maybe Friday. I think we have most of the rares, if not all the rares thus far, and there's a bunch of kind of commons and uncommons. So I'll probably try to do a wrap-up video with everything tomorrow or Friday. And then I'm planning to do some sort of top 10 lists for different combos, some winning the game combos, infinite damage combos, all the wacky, cool stuff, and kind of compile it all into some entertaining videos before the set fully releases, I believe, in about 2 weeks on Arena. And then from there, there'll be a bunch of gameplay videos of wacky, cool combo decks. So yeah, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to see all of that coming up. Really appreciate you watching. All the comments, the likes, the subscribes, the views, they all mean the world to me. So really appreciate you, and hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.